Hello everyone and welcome to Mr. Simplify's tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to look at the Expectancy Theory of Motivation by Victor Vroom. Now continuing on with our quest to understanding employee motivation, we look at the findings of Professor Victor Vroom in the field of employee motivation in this tutorial. Now according to Vroom, an employee's performance is actually based on various individual factors such as his or her personality, skills acquired, knowledge, experience, and abilities. Now, he observed that human beings actually make conscious choices all the time amongst various alternatives present with them in order to actually maximize pleasure and to minimize pain for themselves. So, essentially, human motivation is dependent on the reward obtained at the end of any task. So the reward obtained at the end of any task is the most important driving factor for motivation. And his findings also emphasize perceptions. So what does this actually mean? What's the meaning of this? Now, there could be situations wherein an employee will actually work really hard for the expected outcomes because the results, the outcomes or the incentives provided are actually desirable for the employee. And there can also be situations wherein an employer thinks that they've actually provided everything appropriate for employee motivation, and even if this works for the majority of people in the organization, there can always be a chance that it actually doesn't work well enough for some people. It just doesn't motivate them at all. Why is that so? Let's look deeper into expectancy theory to understand all of this. Now, there are essentially three factors that need to be understood to analyze motivation effectively. These are expectancy, instrumentality, and valence. Okay? Now, expectancy is the belief that increased effort will actually lead to increased performance. So the harder I work, the better I will perform. Okay? So here's a direct link. So there is a direct link rather between effort and performance as per expectancy. The higher the value of expectancy, the better it is in terms of understanding, in terms of achieving employee motivation. Okay, now expectancy is actually influenced by some factors. These are having the right resources at hand, like raw materials, time, etc., having the right skills to be able to actually complete the job, and having the necessary support in the organization to actually get the job done. Now, the second factor is instrumentality. Now, instrumentality is your assessment of how likely you are to actually get the expected reward if you actually hit the target, if you actually get the outcome that's desired by the organization. And again, the higher the value of instrumentality, the better it is in terms of motivation. Now, clearly there is an element of trust involved in this belief. This belief is actually influenced by the transparency of the decision-making process when it comes to rewards, incentives, the transparency of the actual targets or the thresholds that decide the reward structure, and the relationship between performance and the outcomes. Okay, so you get the drift here. You know, people need to understand how likely they are to actually achieve a target and then get the rewards associated. So there's a massive element of trust involved in this factor. Now, the third extremely important is valence. Now, valence is the perceived value of the actual reward for the employee, the actual value of the reward. This is actually a measure of how valuable you perceive the reward to be. Now, some rewards can be really valuable for some people and not for other people. Okay? Now, valence obviously for employees high is if the reward is considered to be highly valuable for him or her, and it can also be zero or even negative if the reward is considered to be insignificant or negative for that person. Okay, now what does this mean? Now, for instance, if achievements of targets can actually in a certain organization can actually lead to more breaks or shorter working days temporarily, if that is the incentive structure that's put in place, that if you achieve your targets, if you work hard on a particular day, you actually get half the day off or something. Now this could be this sort of a reward could be of really high value for some people who would prefer to have extra time with their families, etc., but it wouldn't be of much value to a lot of other people. Okay, now some people just don't have much else to do other than work on a regular day, so it doesn't actually make more sense for them, any sense for them to actually get extra time. They would rather actually get more money or something else as an incentive. The valence, therefore, in such cases could be 0 or negative for some people, and the higher the value of valence, the better it is in terms of human motivation. Okay, now so what is the formula for expectancy theory? Expectancy theory can be calculated by this formula. So MF, which is the motivational force, is expectancy multiplied by instrumentality multiplied by valence. Okay, and motivational force, that is MF, is simply the level of motivation, the degree of motivation. And the higher the value of MF for an employee or an individual, the more motivated he or she is. This is the expectancy theory in a nutshell. As you can see from the chart as well, effort can lead to performance, and that can lead to reward in an ideal world. Now, effort will only be put in if there is a belief that an increased effort will actually lead to better performance, and then if there is a belief that the accepted level of performance will actually grant rewards, then the performance is of any value for the employee. And then if the reward is considered to be valuable by the employee, then the whole thing actually comes into play. Otherwise, the whole thing does not come into play, and there will be no motivation to actually put in the extra effort to begin with. Okay? Now, how can organizations actually use expectancy theory? Now, motivating employees for better performance is actually common practice for business, because businesses obviously want to make more money. So they want motivated employees. They want people to put in their 100% and more than what they're expected to. And expectancy theory is commonly used to actually understand and manage employee motivation. Now, using expectancy theory would actually mean that organizations ensure that the reward structure is actually transparent and the thresholds for the rewards are known. Now, and an increase in performance results in measurable rewards. The rewards provided are desirable for employees, so a high level of valence, and only deserving candidates are rewarded. These are some of the things that organizations can ensure they put in place if they want to follow the expectancy theory. And how can individuals use expectancy theory in their own personal life? How can we use expectancy theory on a day-to-day life? We can always, we always tend to set goals for ourselves in our personal lives. It's not just about work. In our personal lives as well, we have certain goals, certain things that we want to do. Now, a key part of expectancy theory is expectations. When we do something, we expect to get something in return either immediately or in due course. Okay? Now, people can sometimes fail at motivating themselves to achieve something before they even start. And that is often because the goals they chase aren't ones they actually want. It might be something, it could be something that the society perceives to be important, not themselves. The expectations can also sometimes be unrealistic. Now, it is important to remember that extra effort is needed for better performance and better outcomes. So you can actually use expectancy theory to set yourself targets, to set yourself measurable and practical targets which you can then achieve and then reward yourself. For example, if your goal is to actually get fit or lose weight, you need to actually devise plans which incorporate joining a gym or playing some sort of sport. And then what you could do is you can actually gradually increase the intensity of the activity, start getting better at it, and then eventually get better results. Okay, and then eventually get what you wanted out of the activity. So that is how you can use expectancy theory in your day-to-day life, or for setting goals and to actually be motivated in life and achieve things. Now, what are the advantages of this and disadvantages of expectancy theory? The advantages are that it's quite simple to use. It gives us a roadmap to improving performance by actually fine-tuning the reward structure. Okay, disadvantages? Well, it doesn't take a lot of external possible influences into account. For instance, if an employee is facing personal problems, or there is a problem that an employee has just very recently faced, it's been an accident or whatever else, or some sort of personal problem, it is very difficult to actually then get motivated by any type or a magnitude of rewards, because there are external factors into play, and then these factors are not taken into account. And then the next disadvantage is that it can be actually extremely difficult to implement this in larger organizations, wherein rewards can't actually be personalized per individuals. It's just too large an organization to be able to manage that. And the incentives are actually tied in with the overall company performance. Now, that's quite evident in a lot of organizations, especially larger organizations. It's just not possible to always set individual targets and reward structures. The model is also just overly simplistic and doesn't take into account a lot of complexities of human behavior. Like, a lot of people can actually act against their own self-interests in a lot of situations. That's just human behavior that the theory just doesn't account for. Okay, that is a summary of expectancy theory. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I thank you very much for your attendance as always. And as always, like this content, support this video, like our Facebook page as well, subscribe, and take care of yourself. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.